All right, well, let's just quieten our minds for a minute, collect our thoughts. I probably don't need my glasses. And generate a good motivation, really positive motivation for spending this hour together. All right, so today we're going to talk about bodhicitta. So it's always a very pleasant and joyful thing to talk about. Again, assuming that you don't have the knowledge that you do, I'll speak as though you don't know very much. I'm sure you know all of this already. Anyway, talking about bodhicitta, and we'll get on to what it means in a little bit, but I think it's really important self-care. So really we've talked about in the last couple of weeks about our own path, our own progress, our own liberation, really. You know, our situation, suffering, wanting happiness, not having either to a large extent, and the frustrations and so on that go along with that. So even though we've talked about others within that, and we've, you know, used them as an examples and so on, it's really been about our own liberation, really, our own progress and so on. So I think that's important really to keep in mind, because once we get into bodhicitta, we start talking about self-cherishing and other cherishing. And maybe I'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to the self-cherishing one, because it can sound like we're completely wanting to neglect our own interest and our own development. It can sound like that when we're talking about this, but I think the self-care is really a prerequisite. So it's really doing that in a wise way, whereas perhaps we don't do it in such a wise way right now. So yeah, I mean, is it correct, you know, if we look at what probably most of us do right now, we pretty well spend 24/7 focusing on ourself. You know, we do need food, we do need clothes, we need, you know, money, either work or various things, employment, that sort of thing. Or so we have our 24 hours. So how do we spend that? And what's our motivation behind that? And mostly it's trying to gain these two things, you know, trying to have some enjoyment. You know, I'll go to the movies now, I'm tired, I'll go to bed, I'll wake up, what do I want to have for breakfast? You know, what do I want to do today, even at work? You know, who do I want to be with? You know, et cetera, this sort of thing. So if we really look inside and we're honest with ourselves, then it's basically all revolves around us, and to a large extent to an exclusion of others. You know, we hear things on the news, you know, a third of Pakistan flooded, you know, and we watch that news clip, and it might be maybe a couple of minutes since something really important like that, and then we carry on. I mean, for here it's the news is pretty much just before we have dinner, and so we think about it and we go, oh, that looks really, that's really sad. That's really tough. Wish it could help. Hope they get out of it quickly. And then, next minute, or dinner time. Okay, oh, gee, well, this is, quite delicious, and well, this is a little bit overcooked or undercooked or blah, 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 chatting away and so on. And it's almost like, okay, so we've given it maybe 2 minutes, the flooding in Pakistan and the people there. I mean, how many million people? I mean, it's probably an unbelievable number. I didn't catch. They must have said. I think something like what they estimate at the moment, 100,000 people died, and that'll probably go up, really a lot. Anyway, huge numbers. So, we give it a sort of an amount of importance in our mind, but then that's 2 minutes out of our day. And how often do we actually come back to that and think about them? Even sitting down here and talking about Dharma, did we think specifically about them, or do we just include them in the general all sentient beings that we motivate for? So it's a matter of trying to get from where we're at right now and our attitudes right now into a much more kind of expansive view and motivation. Ourselves, we're only one, and even amongst human beings, there's 7 billion, 8 billion humans on the world and the earth at this time. I mean, I can't even really conceive of what a billion would be. In New Zealand here, we have maybe 5 million people. So what's a billion? That's 100 times more than a million, isn't it? Or 1,000 times more. I think the English and the Americans have a different interpretation of what a billion is. But even if it's 100 times, it's a huge number of people, and that's just people, that's not even animals and insects and so on like that. Anyway, so is it really correct to spend 100% of our energy on ourselves? If we look back in our earlier part of life, when we were born, we were totally helpless. We didn't come with any clothes or any money or food or whatever. We were totally dependent, in particular on our mother, but more, also on our father, if he was around, other family, friends, people looked after us, that sort of thing. We really couldn't do anything for ourselves. I mean, human beings are some of the most helpless at the time of birth, really. You see some of these animal programs and a foal will be born, and then a couple of minutes later they'll stand up and be able to start, sucking milk and so on like that. I guess they do that, right? The foals are, horses, yeah, okay. I was just suddenly thinking, cows having udders, and but I've never seen I guess I've never seen an udder on a mare. So yeah, anyway, city boy. So I mean, not only does this energy go on ourselves, but it's our group. We identify with our family, obviously. I mean, in New Zealand, we talk about even wider family, whānau. It's kind of family and friends. It's kind of a more encompassing group, but it's still very much, New Zealand, it's sort of my tribe, you might say. I think hapu is the kind of family group. So it'd be kind of reasonably close relatives, it include uncles and aunts and things like that. And then iwi is kind of wider than that. Almost like my tribe, you might say. And then of course race as well, that sort of thing. But we also, when we talk about it, we identify with our school. I always remember, living in America and people talking about, with great and probably appropriate pride about their school. I went to this school, and it was great, or I'm from this state. And so we identify with this place, and that with that mind of discrimination, and then it's very easy to kind of go, well, this is part of me, and the rest is not part of me. It's kind of part of other. And so this is sort of the forerunner, really, of looking after me and mine, and not after other. And even it can be the forerunner of, friend and enemy. That discrimination is kind of the beginning part of that. So we can already see that there's kind of trouble brewing, just because of that discrimination, you might say. So as I mentioned, others, we're only one, others are countless. They're suffering in different ways, just not only in the terms of gross suffering of the suffering of pain, but in the other types of suffering that we talked about, suffering of change, or the suffering of change, and the suffering of the all-pervasive, the more basic one that revolves around ignorance. This one we call unsatisfactoriness, or kind of struggle in a way, which is the kind of the forerunner. So just like us, everybody else, including animals, insects, and so on, and the beings in the other realms, sentient beings with a mind like ourselves, quite in the same boat, in that very broad sense. Of course, everybody has specific problems, specific sufferings, but we're alike in that way. So just looking to cure my problems and to gain my happiness, when in fact, even, for those early parts of our lives, we were, really very, very reliant, and initially totally reliant on others. I mean, if we went into the kindness of the mother, giving the best to ourselves, to her children, for, ourselves, saving us from harm, even saving our lives, sometimes, teaching us how to be in the world, simple things like, making your bed, holding a knife and fork, how to eat, be polite, how to actually fit into society, incredible kindness. Anyway, won't go too far on that, but it's really incredible. And then, of course, at the end of our lives, if we, reach, even 60s and so on, we spend more time at the doctor, at the dentist. We start to need help from others in different ways, even, opening jars, bottles and things like that. I'm not sure about you, Carolyn, but it becomes more and more difficult actually to open plastic packets and things like that. I think not only does the plastic get tougher, but then, we get weaker as well, so it becomes childproof and old age proof as well, And so then we're reliant on others to help us for all these things. So somehow, so this is what happens at the beginning of our life and at the end of our life, where we become more and more reliant on others. And then in the middle, somehow, so then it seems like it's okay to actually just neglect others, so that's kind of, it's not right, obviously. It's really not right. So, I mean, there's not only others need our help just in mundane ways, like opening jars and, various things, but help towards liberation, because we know from our own experience that we haven't been able to figure it out on our own. We are grateful that we've met the teachings and that we've met the lamas who embody the teachings and who are passing on basically for free, these amazing methods, and serving as an example to us. So, incredibly kind. So just in the same way, then others need that help. They need to be introduced to the Dharma, to ethics, need to be encouraged. I mean, if we've had children, we know that, as a parent, you feel that responsibility that, yes, there's those mundane things, teaching our children to do, but somehow we have more of a responsibility to that. We don't want our children to turn out as delinquents and end up in the prison system, causing not only themselves a lot of harm, but others in society, a lot of harm. So we try to guide them with a kind of kindness, talk to them about that, talk to them about ethics, talk about basically what's right and what's wrong to do. So if we extend that, then actually everybody kind of needs that. I mean, everybody, people may be good citizens, but there's a lot of people who are not interested in liberation. They are in a sense quite happy just to squeeze some enjoyment out of this life. And it probably stems from not believing that there's actually any liberation, but it also stems from not actually investigating really deeply, as we've talked about already, the actual nature of unsatisfactoriness of our condition. So just like us, they need to be guided, and who can guide them basically? It's only enlightened beings, because everybody has different dispositions, and it's probably been our experience that when we try to help somebody else, what may have worked for us, and we're telling them that, look, just do it like this and it'll really work for you, it just may be totally wrong for them. May not work, they may not be interested, or even if they do use the method that we're talking about, it just may not help. So it's not just good intention, it's actual skillful means that's needed. And there's also a clairvoyance, a real clairvoyance of being able to know their minds and know what the basic problem is, and then also knowing the solutions. So countless different problems, countless different wrong views, for instance, So also countless methods that the Buddha showed to counteract those wrong views, right? And so really it's only a fully awakened being that can really help people. We know when we listen to a teaching by His Holiness or one of our teachers and so on, that within a short period of time, an hour and a half, it's like, is just this steady stream of wisdom and solutions that they're giving. And there's always something for everybody there, you know. It's one of the great skills of Lama Yeshe, Lama Tupten Yeshe, you know, who I had the good fortune to meet and be a student of. His talks were, yeah, just this smorgasbord, this kind of delight of, seemed like he was bopping around all over the place, and yet, you know, there was a coherency, but it's like people came away feeling like, wow, you know, he was telling me this, you know, like this was for me. It's almost like he tuned in to every individual person and said, okay, you know, kind of, this is for you, this is for you, this is for you. And of course, the general teachings for everybody, you know. And
wow, you can see it in your face, you know, Murray, when you recall that, your face just sort of glowed and your eyes just.
yeah, yeah.
Mm,
I mean, it really was. If you've read Big Love, you know, the book,
yeah,
yeah, I think, yeah, Adele Holst, you know, and the people's stories kind of convey that. And
yeah, they do.
that's part of the skillful means of a Buddha, really. And they all have their own personalities. So, of course, they're all not like Lama Yeshe. Like Lama Zopa Rinpoche is not like Lama Yeshe, but he has his own amazing skillful means. And yeah, and His Holiness, you know, the same way, and our other teachers, you know. So, you know, when that really touches you, you go like, wow, I'd like to be like that, you know. Incredible. So anyway, so bodhicitta is the chitta, it's a Sanskrit word. So chitta means mind, bodhi is awakening, really. And that part, that bodhi is has the same root, I believe, as that of Bud, you know, Buddha, as in Buddha. So the word, the kind of compound of Buddha, really means purified and awakened. So this is kind of these two aspects. So bodhicitta is kind of an awakening mind, and bodhisattvas, the beings who have bodhicitta, so female, male, or, you know, could be even animals, so on. Various sentient beings manifesting in different ways are those that possess this very special mind of bodhicitta, the awakening mind. And ultimately, that enables them to become Buddhas, fully awakened beings. So there's two aims of bodhicitta. The primary aim is to benefit all sentient beings. So all beings with a mind like ours that transmigrates from life to life, that's basically right now bound to take on suffering births again and again. Wow, countless, they say. I mean, they don't use the word infinite. Anyway, but countless, humongous number that I think it's even said that even Lord Buddha can't count, actually. But it's not like there's more and more being produced. So as sentient beings become Buddhas, there's actually less sentient beings. As I talked about, mind can only come from a previous moment of mind. So it's not like new minds are being produced. Anyway, that's another story. So the second part of the aim of bodhicitta is that oneself will become enlightened in order to achieve the first aim. Okay, so in order to achieve the aim of bringing all sentient beings, even just to liberation, their own personal nirvana, but, you know, even more so in the long term to their own enlightenment, plus all the levels below that, you know, helping them in this life and, you know, get better future lives and so on like that, in order to be able to do that, ourself becoming enlightened, because that's kind of like the highest qualification in a way. It's a bit like going to university and med school to become a doctor in order to heal suffering sentient beings. We don't just think, oh, it's really sad that, you know, people have cuts and brain tumors and cancer and this and that and the next thing, and, you know, may they be well, you know, so on like that. But it's like, I'm going to do something about it. So for the moment, you know, oneself can't really diagnose, for instance, their problems, doesn't know the right medicines, isn't recognized by society as having those qualifications. So, you know, we might be able to help some others in a limited way. But even the motivation of becoming a doctor is much greater than that. You know, many more methods, much greater ability, you know, to do that and to help, you know, so many different living beings. So they don't talk about, so with bodhicitta, they don't talk really too much about the benefit for oneself. But in actual fact, it's like we benefit a lot, because by achieving enlightenment, it's like our own aims are achieved. So it's not like we just achieve the aims of others, but by the by, we have this amazing mind and body. But that's not the fundamental aim. So we say that bodhicitta and attaining enlightenment is for them, but it's also independence upon them. And so it's really good to remember that the first verse of the 8 verses of thought transformation, going something like independence upon with the determination to become enlightened, independence upon all sentient beings who are more precious than a wish-granting jewel, I will constantly hold them dear. So initially, I think the translations that I saw were for the sake of all sentient beings. And then Kabje Lama Zopa Rinpoche said, no, actually, it's really from all sentient beings. So I think that it's for is included, but actually from is really important, because, for instance, if there were no other sentient beings right now, right, we would say, well, okay, we wouldn't have problems, but actually with our own current mind state, if it's based on ignorance, we would have incredible problems still, even if others weren't around, right? Because it's still in our mind, there would be that ignorance, there would be still attachment, there would still be aversion. You know, we could probably do anything we wanted, you know, on this planet or so on, you know, without others. I mean, for one, we'd be incredibly lonely, you know. So we need others to stop, to help, avoid our own loneliness. But in fact, we need to, if we really want to become enlightened, actually, we need each of those other sentient beings. It's like we can't leave anyone out. Bodhicitta is a mind that encompasses all sentient beings. So if we leave one out, then we won't have bodhicitta. And if we don't have bodhicitta, then we can't achieve enlightenment. So when we bring it back, to maybe a more mundane sort of examples is, we're cleaning out our garage, and we want to get rid of some stuff, or some of it goes to the dump. Okay, so we need the people who work at the dump, and we need the council to have created that space that we can get rid of it, and so on and so forth, like that. But then some other things that are still quite useful, we like to give them to somebody. So we need somebody who actually wants them. Have you ever been trying to give something to somebody? It's like, even a piece of chocolate, it's like, oh, look here, here's some dark chocolate. Oh, no, I don't like dark chocolate. Well, do you know anybody who does? No, all my friends, no, they don't like dark chocolate. Okay, so we actually need a recipient. We need somebody, even for the act of generosity, right? I mean, in the sense that, like, I can't give a Dharma talk if there's nobody who's interested in listening, even to that point. So, ethics are the same. I mean, patience is a bit harder for us to get our heads around, but patience is one of the 6 perfections. Once a person develops bodhicitta, then they practice the 6 perfections, and one of them is patience. And a part of it is not getting irritated at circumstances, but it's also not getting irritated at sentient beings as well. And, there's another type of patience, bearing the hardships for the Dharma. But that patience of not getting irritated with other sentient beings, it's like, well, our teacher doesn't make us irritated in general, so we can't practice patience with them. So we actually need the person that we label enemy, whether they were our friend or our partner, our family member, 5 minutes beforehand, then they do something that we don't like or say something that we don't like, and we immediately label them. We kind of throw them out of this box of like me and mine and warm fuzzies for all of this group, and we kind of immediately throw them out of this box into another sort of category, right? Which, even if in our own mind we say, well, are they now an enemy for you? It's like, no, I'm just irritated with them. Well, so would you like to see more of them? No, I'd like to see less of them at the moment, and so on. So we made this kind of division, and so we need that. We need that person who pushes our buttons in order to be able to practice patience, in order to perfect patience. So anyway, we need others. We need others in so many different ways. So for them and in dependence upon them, we will achieve enlightenment, and for that reason, constantly hold them dear. So that's like a really powerful, first verse of the 8 verses of thought transformation. There's a lot there. So to generate bodhicitta, there's 2 methods, and then there is sometimes taught a combination of those 2 methods. So one of them is the 7-point cause and effect meditation, and that really relies on having some feeling for beginningless lives, and then heavily relies on the kindness of our mother, or feeling the kindness of, if not our mother, but the person who brought us up, the worldly person, you might say, who was the most kind to us. So many times, unfortunately, Westerners have a bit of difficulty with this one, probably because many don't have good relationship with their mother, which is quite unfortunate. So it can be that this other method, the equalizing, exchanging self for others, can be more effective for our minds. So I thought to talk a little bit more about that. Let's see, just keep an eye on the time. Sheila, maybe you or Carolyn, you can remind me if it's getting close to the hour, and I don't realize. So equalizing, exchanging self and others. So we're talking about our attitude. We're not talking about exchanging anything else, although, you know, we can demonstrate that change in attitude with an exchange of, you know, material goods or other things like that. But it's really the fundamental change is changing that attitude, because if we don't change that attitude, we can still be generous in a way. We can still give things to others, but if we don't do it with the right attitude, it's not really counted as dharma. It's not really counted as proper generosity, really. So the basis of all this is looking first at this thing of self and others, and equalizing the attitude towards self and others. So as I mentioned earlier, perhaps it's not the case now, because I think you both have perhaps been Buddhist, you know, for a while. So initially, our normal hedonistic life is 100% for ourselves and our family, as I mentioned. So then gradually we try and say, well, okay, well, if it's not just totally for me, I mean, even within our family and our friends, you know, there are some people who are very selfish, that will appear to be very selfish. We really can't tell. They may be just demonstrating it for us to get the point. But you know, even within that, even within amongst a group of friends, you know, people can be very selfish. They consider the other people their friends, but still so much the attitude is for me, my happiness, and so on. So we try and loosen that up, soften that up. And classically, there are a number of points, 9 points that we can go through that help us to try and open up that attitude. Because if we don't feel like ourselves and others are equal, then there's no point in trying to do the other steps or to add the other parts on top of that. You know, so it's really a crucial step at the beginning. So the first one is that that we all equally want happiness and want to avoid suffering. So I don't think I need to labor that. It's pretty obvious. Again, if we look at the news, you know, anybody who's interviewed or talked about or on the news, they're really talking about either what they would wish for or what they don't wish for, right? And nothing different really to us. Then, and the second point is kind of an example is given. So, well, yeah, okay. So second point, an example is given, and the classic example is if we saw 10 beggars and some were short and some were tall, some were male, some were female, some were, perhaps ugly, and some were less ugly or more handsome and beautiful, someone like that. Is it appropriate to discriminate, one for the other between those 10, because they're all equal in having needs? They're all equal in wanting, say, for instance, just money. I'm thinking, if you've been to India, you see these lines of beggars, and they're basically just wanting money. So is it correct that we discriminate between each one of them? No, we generally we don't. By recognizing that need, we equally give them whatever we can, right? Second example is a kind of similar one in the sense of, in a doctor's room, doctor's waiting room, 10 people there, they're all equal in the sense of having some problem, some disease or affliction that they're wanting to be cured of. So the doctor doesn't discriminate one from the other, on the basis of race or age or so on. A real doctor wouldn't discriminate on that, because they recognize that they're all equal in having this wish to be free from suffering, and they treat them like that. So really the conclusion when we contemplate in this way is to then kind of make a decision that, okay, so from now on, with equal mind, I will cherish all equally, and I will avoid harming all equally, right? So it's important to kind of make that decision, when we go through these contemplations. We can do it at each different point is even stronger, at the end of that. We really convince ourselves, well, yeah. So secondly, then we look at it more from our side, and we say, well, everybody has been equally kind. And if we go back to beginning of this lifetimes, we have had many different relationships. Even in this life, we've had this kindness from so many others, directly and indirectly. Some have been more directly kind, obviously parents, family, so on, that sort of thing. Maybe neighbor, maybe boss, maybe employee, who knows, like that. Yes, maybe shown us stronger acts of kindness. But then what about even just as we're traveling down the road, in our car, if somebody comes across and drives on the opposite side of the road, on the wrong side of the road for them, and crashes into us, we would feel that they're really being unkind, not paying attention, or even deliberately, crashing into us, so on like that. So if we turn that thought around, then isn't it really kind that other people stay mostly on their side of the road, that don't run red lights, that don't crash into the back of us, that sort of thing. They could harm us in so many different ways, and we know this does happen, but mostly it doesn't happen. And so we have that kind of that peace, that lack of hassle, that lack of problems, because of the kindness of others. Now, it's not really to do with their motivation. They're probably motivating for self-preservation, just like probably we are when we're driving down the road and keeping to our own side. But nevertheless, it's a kindness that we receive from others. So, I mean, there's countless examples of this, really. And of course, if we think about them having been our parents, different lifetimes, the Buddha said that each one has been our parent countless times over. So they've shown us the same sort of kindness, maybe even more than our current parents, in all of many, many different ways. And we shouldn't discriminate and say, well, okay, that's in the past, because if somebody gave us $100 today, right, but yesterday or last month they were criticizing us, and another person was criticizing us today, but last month gave us $100, aren't they the same? We get so pulled around by our emotions. Our first tendency would be, no, the person giving us $100 today is more kind, but stepping back a little bit, we'll go, well, okay, they've both been kind. They've both also harmed us in a sense, or offered us the practice, offered us to a chance to practice patience. So in actual fact, have been kind in that way. So they're both equal, but it's just time is different. One is now, one was then, that sort of thing, but same kind. Well, haven't they also harmed us, equally harmed us, killed us, cheated on us, stolen from us, done all of these various things? Well, yes, they have. We've got to acknowledge that they will have. But in general, their kindness vastly overwhelms any harm they've given us. If we think of all the strangers that we might have contact with in a year, the person on the end of the call line when we call up about something going wrong with our bill or whatever like that, they're a stranger to us, they're part of the solution. The other people who, if we ride the bus, for instance, all the other people who ride the bus, not necessarily at the same time as us, but the bus service can only happen because of all of those people supporting it. It's probably not from us taking a bus ride even once a day, that the bus could afford to run. Same with the airplanes, same with trains, all of that sort of thing. Same with the petrol stations. What about all the other people who go and buy gas there? It's not just because of us that they can manage to stay in business. So there's these sort of secondary kindnesses, you might say. And we don't need to talk about, our house, our clothes, our, all of the objects and so on that we have. We didn't make them. Even our own money, where does it come from? Well, if we're lucky to get it through inheritance, well, we get it from somebody else. And if we have to earn it ourselves, we're either, it's through either the kindness of our customers, if we have a business, and maybe our employees, or our boss, so it doesn't come all on its own. So then we talk on the basis. Okay, so this is sort of, again, we're kind of trying to equalize our attitude towards, between self and others. And then in the ultimate sense, if people were really, if sentient beings were really enemies, like our crazy mind, projects, or if they're really friends or so on, well, wouldn't His Holiness see it like that? Wouldn't Buddha see it like that? They would see our enemies as their enemies, if they were really, really enemies, if there was real enemy there, if there was real friend, I love you, you're the most fantastic, I live for you, I can't do without you, whatever like that. If that person was really like that, You know, they would see it like that. But you can see that His Holiness doesn't see it like that. And then we can also consider that self and others are like this side and that side of the room. I mean, you know, this side and that side of the screen. You know, here we are. It's pretty obvious, you know, from my point of view here in Nelson, you know, the two of you are others, you know, from your point, you know, the two of us are others, you know. So it's just relative. So if we start kind of trying to throw it around, mix it around in our mind, then actually our attitude, and we need to do this repeatedly, our attitude starts to kind of loosen up this whole preoccupation with self. Okay, moving along a little bit just to maybe summarize a few more points. Self-cherishing versus other cherishing. So like I say, self-cherishing in these teachings, self-cherishing is talked about as the root cause of our problems. And it may not fit in our mind because we've heard that ignorance is the root of our problems. So how do the two go together? Well, I think it's important to understand that from the point of view of the mind training teachings, that self-cherishing and self-grasping, more the ignorant side of things, that like the wrong view of self, are actually spoken of together. They're not really discriminated. They're so involved with each other. I mean, we couldn't have self-cherishing if we really didn't believe so strongly in a truly existent self, an inherently existent self, right? That would already diminish our kind of grasping at an I, at an ego, and to a certain extent that selfishness then, because if there really isn't, if the I exists in a much more ephemeral way, not such a solid way, then we wouldn't be clinging so strongly to it. So it wouldn't be so important that my happiness and be free from my suffering, and my family and my country and so on, all of this sort of thing, right? So whenever really they talk about self-cherishing, it's really to distinguish it from other cherishing. And the self-cherishing is really, you could say selfishness really, or but it's more subtle than that. It's really my interest to the exclusion really of others. Might not be 100%, but if it's like, if there's a choice, well, okay, I'm going to go for number one, right? Not for number 2, 3, or 4, right? Or 100 or 1,000, right? Like that. That's what that self-cherishing mind is. Whereas the other cherishing mind goes like, well, even if there's only one person, or one animal or insect, what do they want? Can I somehow put myself in their situation? Can I make them happy, even just in a mundane way, right? And so that's kind of other cherishing. And I think it's important to just start small, because this idea of bodhicitta, an enlightenment mind, is so huge. It's so vast and amazing. I mean, can we even get our head around it at the moment? Maybe not. But what we can get our head around is those that are around us, So it's all very easy sitting on our meditation cushion and, having nice thoughts. Nobody's bugging you. Nobody's mowing the lawn just outside the window. Nobody's, banging on the door, so on like that. And, just sending out thoughts of love to all sentient beings somehow in the vague space out there, right? Like that. And then after some time getting up off our meditation seat, and then getting irritated with the people that we live with, with those on the television, the politicians, and the people who have different opinions for us, and so on. So start small, I think, and we can do small actions with a big mind. So part of the mind training is that we may just be giving a small, say, little bit of bread for some birds, but then if we are mindful, we can think, may I give you and all sentient beings the Dharma in the future, just like I'm giving you a few crumbs now, right? We can conjoin our mind with those actions. So then that starts to generate or go towards this kind of bodhicitta mind. So it's not about doing bigger actions in a way, but it's about doing same actions with a bigger mind. And then, of course, our actions will change, to generally being more positive. Anyway, it's nearly time. So I don't know whether you have any brief comments or questions or brickbats.
No, that was very practical, and with the 8 verses, that's a good reminder about that word about determined to obtain the greatest possible benefit from, and remember why it's from all sentient beings, that that's sort of part of that bodhicitta training, and starting small, and just reflecting on how often we do friends, enemies, strangers in a day. So it's very practical.
Yeah, good.
Thank you.
Good. I think that the mindfulness, we don't perhaps talk about it so much in our tradition, but trying to become more aware of what's actually going on in our mind, because that discrimination, that little bit of irritation and so on, they're there, and if we're a bit more mindful, we pick up on them. And then ask ourselves, is that appropriate, or why am I feeling this? I don't like that announcer on the radio, well, like, why? Or maybe has an accent, or appears to be very proud, or something like that. So actually kind of questioning our mind, and then going, well, okay, well, is it actually appropriate? Should we just focus on that, to the exclusion of them being a sentient being? They are that person because of causes and conditions, just like we are. Product. And the mind can kind of soften a little bit, but if we don't catch it at that point, we continue, and then the following day, the following week, or whatever, when we hear that person's voice again, we go like, oh, I don't like that person. We don't even tell others, and so on. And so we carry that in a way in our mind all along, and it's really it's not another cherishing attitude. It's not cherishing them. Actually, it's kind of it's really our own pleasure and avoidance of irritation, or avoidance of pain. Anyway. Okay, well, thank you so much, and maybe dedicate that we can really develop our minds, develop, the great good heart of bodhicitta and all the steps towards that, and practice the 6 perfections and even the stages of Tantra, and really quickly as possible attain full enlightenment for every living being without exception. And those merits, if we have some understanding, whatever understanding we have of emptiness, we can think that we ourselves are empty of true existence, and the merits are empty of true existence. And the act of dedication is empty of true existence. So all of them exist in mere name. And so in that way we create karma. So it's not that they're non-existent, but they exist in a different way to how we normally perceive them. Okay, thanks again.
Okay.
Hopefully
Thank
see
you.
you some other time.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.